wrote this children's book, she was a fourth grade teacher, and she wanted to be able to write something in a way that like her fourth grade students could understand. And so she came up with this book, and I mean, obviously just the significance and importance of the survivor tree. And then the illustrations in here are also really good. But that's the gist. It was created by a little fourth grade teacher in Oklahoma, and it's really good. So, are we ready? Okay. And obviously, it is in fact dedicated to the ones that we lost on April the 19th. Okay. Nearly 100 years ago, I was a tiny cutting from a great American elm. A loving family planted me in their yard as the horses and wagons clip-clopped along the dirt roads of a young town on the Oklahoma prairie called Oklahoma City. And that day was the beginning of my story. The children and I grew up together as this new American city grew bigger and bigger all around us. Gravel roads became paved streets. Streetcars and automobiles replaced horses and buggies. Men built buildings so tall they were called skyscrapers because they seemed to touch the Oklahoma sky. And those were exciting days. As the years went by, I learned some days bring sadness. The family that loved and cared for me outgrew their home and they had to move away. When moving day came, I gave them my comfort and shade one last time as one by one they hugged me and waved goodbye. And that day left me all alone for the very first time. Before long, enormous machines rumbled in and gobbled up the old house like goats eating a tasty snack. And then workers with hammers and nails came to build something new. Every day the workers would seek out my shade as they ate lunch or napped on break. And those were productive days. One afternoon, when the building was nearly finished, I overheard the workers talking about me as they ate their sandwiches nearby. The boss says this tree's got to go. We can't cut this tree down, it's the only shade around. Their words worried me, but no one cut me down that day. I was still standing on March 22nd, 1977, when the building opened with a big celebration. The new building was given a name that day, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. The Murrah Building was such a busy place. Every day, all day long, people scurried in and out, men and women in suits who helped keep our country running. Ordinary Americans and visitors who needed Uncle Sam's help, and the men and women in uniform who served in order to keep our country safe. Best of all were the many children from the little daycare inside the Murrah Building who came each day to laugh and sing and play under my branches. I always stretched my bows extra wide for them so everybody had a shady spot out of the hot Oklahoma sun, including the nice lady with the big red hat who liked to come and eat her lunch with me. And those were useful days. One bright April morning, as I waited for the children to come out and play, I watched as the city started another day. I did not feel the hate in the air, and I did not notice the big yellow truck parked so near the building. Boom. The ground beneath my roots shook and the windows across the city shattered. The explosion was so loud, people heard it more than 50 miles away. Then, silence. That was the day that the clock stopped at 9:02 a.m. What I saw next was stranger still. People did not run away from the burning Murrah building. People ran toward it. And then I realized they were running to help the people inside. And that was a day of courage. Help came first from Oklahoma, but then from everywhere. And by the end of that day, first responders from Arizona and New York had already arrived. The first responders brought rescue dogs, wearing little shoes on their paws to avoid injury. Dogs and handlers searched tirelessly through the mountain of rubble as day turned to night and back again. One by one, the weary rescue workers and their canine helpers came and rested against my trunk, only to go back and search some more. My charred branches had no shade left to offer them. Still, I was glad to give them what comfort I could that day. Like so many in Oklahoma City, I was not sure that I would survive the bombing. That is what it had been, the loud noise that shook our city that April morning. A homemade bomb, hidden in a yellow moving truck left there by a man who let hate fill his heart. The young man would be caught and would pay for his crime, and our city would be left to deal with the destruction the young man had left behind. Once again, the calls came to cut me down. "It's gotta come down, there's evidence in those branches," one man said. "Look at it," another worker said. "It's barely standing. It'll come down on its own." A third, with amazement in his eyes, whispered, "I can't believe it's still here." They did not cut me down that day. Instead, in short order, they climbed into my blackened branches and gently removed the debris and evidence that had collected there. Did they know that I was still alive that day? What was left of the Murrah building was put under a big bright spotlight, and a fence went up to keep the area safe. And then, to everyone's surprise, the people began to come to the fence 24 hours a day, rain or shine. I watched as the visitors comforted one another and tied messages and keepsakes to the fence. Teddy bears, photographs, American flags, a single red rose, a fireman's hat, a child's drawing, letters, both long and short. The gifts filled the fence, not once, but over and over and over again. And each and every one was carefully saved when its time on the fence was over. Then, 33 days, 21 hours, and 59 minutes after the day the city went silent, America gathered to watch the last remnants of the Murrah building come thundering to the ground. No one would ever again have to look at that gaping wound that hate had wrought. But the fence, it stayed. And the people, they still came. Those were healing days. The first summer after the bombing was followed by the first fall, and the trees in the neighborhood turned bright with color and then were softly covered in the snows of the first winter. Through it all, I stood charred and alone, waiting. Those were uncertain days. I felt the warmth of spring arrive and the buds well up in my branches, and I knew before anyone could tell me that I was healing, just as the people of Oklahoma City were healing. When my first leaf appeared, it caused quite a stir. The tree, it survived. That was a day of promise. The news spread like an Oklahoma wildfire through the city, the country, and then the whole world. And people began to call me the survivor tree. The people still came to the fence, but now they also came to see me, as once the little children and the nice lady had done. They said I gave them hope that they too could survive despite what had happened. And my days had purpose once again. When we gathered that first April to remember the 168 people lost on the 19th day of April 1995, I was there, as I had always been. I was a tree that love had planted, and I had become a symbol that love will always conquer hate. The families left that day with seedlings from me to plant at home, a remembrance of their loved ones and a tradition still followed to this day. My offspring now grow in every state in the Union, including on hallowed ground at the memorial site of the September 11th, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City. It has been many years since the world went silent that beautiful, clear April morning, but every single day, the people still come. Below me, a tranquil memorial park now stands, with 168 chairs, one for each person we lost that day. One chair is for the nice lady who no longer comes for lunch, and 19 smaller chairs for the children who once played beneath my shade, and one for the nurse who chose to run toward danger on that fateful day. People from all over the world come now to stand by me and remember. They mourn what was done in the name of hate and what we lost that day. And as they wipe away their tears, they vow to never let such an act of hatred happen again. They leave promising to teach their children the power of love and tolerance. And I watch them go and know that our world will be better for them having come here to see this place, to learn about what happened on April the 19th of 1995, a day that we promise never to forget. And then at the end, guys, it has there's a picture kind of what the memorial looks like now. And then she has all of the names have been included in the book. So that's it. And it says the last page we'll never forget. Right? Woo! It's a struggle. The end. The end.